Hi, this is Mikey from Tactics Live Tournament. Today, I am proud to present a new video in the Creator Chat series, where I have casual conversations with other Tactics creators on YouTube, with topics covering their channels, their experiences, and their thoughts on multiplayer modes. In this episode, we will be chatting with Yoshnja, moderator of Tactics League website and Discord channel. Yoshnja has been working on building a community centered around competitive War of the Lions play and is currently testing a patch designed around balancing PvP multiplayer. If you have been curious about exploring this underutilized feature from the PSP days with friends, Tactics League is the place to get started. Check out the links in the description for more information, and I hope you enjoy today's creator chat with Yoshnja. Cool. Well, I guess let's jump right into it. If you could, please introduce yourself and talk about your website, tacticsleague.com, your Discord channel, and what is the mission of Tactics League?
Hey guys, this is Yoshnja. I am the tournament organizer, the server owner of Tactics League Discord, as well as the website admin for tacticsleague.com. Basically, the purpose of what Tactics League is all about is to create an environment and a community to where people who want to play player versus player tactics as a place, people who want to try to play some multiplayer tactics, and it even doesn't have to be PvP, it can be the co-op mode as well, and the rendezvous mode, but having a location where people can find others who have the same stuff set up with the emulator and zero-tier network and being able to network with other players and be able to play these tactics online. It is cool to have an environment, especially recently, where we're specializing in that type of category where, you know, people are playing tactics and be able to actually play against another player, you know, regardless of where they are in the world. So it's pretty cool.
We're into tactics because of the multiplayer, but we're still playing the game after all this time. What is it about Final Fantasy Tactics that has you playing after all this time? Like, what about the game has you keep coming back to it?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I first played Tactics, it was back like, I don't know, it was like maybe early 2000s, maybe. But when I seen Final Fantasy Tactics, like, you know, this sounds pretty cool. Like, I'm gonna check this out. And I didn't really know too much about strategy games back then. I didn't really play much either at that time, so this was really like my first real entry into a strategy RPG. Of course, I got my ass kicked on Dorter, like so bad, man. Like I couldn't get past it, and I kept on trying to play through it and beat that second mission. I could, so I ended up just like, you know what, I don't know if this game's for me, but it's pretty cool. I like the idea and the concept of it. Fast forwarding a little bit later in, you know, I got Tactics Advance, played around that. Pretty cool game. You know, it had its quirks, but it's a good entry for those who are like going into Tactics for the first time as a game in general. And then what had happened was, you know, a little bit later down the road, and I'm getting a PSP. Now this is where I really got into it, because this was at that point was when War of the Lions came out a little bit later in, and that's when I was like, you know what, I'm gonna buy this game. I remember it. I want to actually try to play it now, and just hadn't looked back since then. Like it's such a good game series. I mean, War of the Lions in general, it's so good. There's a lot of features that I'm surprised to not see in these newer games, and like strategy RPGs still exist, of course, but there's still, I don't know, it just seems like Tactics still has its own unique feel. Maybe it's the bravery and faith system, maybe it's just the way the job system works. I'm not entirely too sure, but a lot of it seems to still be unique even to this day, and it's just amazing to see how a classic can still hold up even through all these years. It was the 25th anniversary now for Tactics originally, so it's crazy how, you know, here we are playing a game that's 25 years old, and it's still just an amazing game to see even after.
So what was your inspiration to get started with Tactics multiplayer and creating a community around it?
So
Nice.
I have a decent competitive player versus player background, if you will. A big Halo nerd, if you will. Been playing since Halo 2. I've also been really heavy into, especially in childhood, was really heavy into Pokemon. So I did a lot of local or LAN, if you want to call it, link cabling with other players back in school, and also was pretty big into trading card games like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh. So I've always had a competitive feel for stuff like that, if you want to call it that. Passion's always been there. So when, going back and looking at War of the Lions, Drace isn't here, but Drace, he's also he played a big role with Tactics League too. Me and him, we both enjoy Tactics. We're both really huge in Final Fantasy series. We both had talked about it when there's why isn't there really much a way to play Tactics multiplayer? The PSP version has it, but it's a little hard to get connected and try to figure that stuff out, right? So War of the Lions presented itself as a unique case of having this PvP mode, which is called melee mode for those that don't know, and as well as the rendezvous mode, which is the co-op mode. War of the Lions is specific in that sense, where it has those features, and we both enjoyed playing Tactics a lot, and it was crazy just to think about hey, maybe there's a way to do this. So he had Drace had the big technical background with Tactics and a lot of the game systems and stuff like that, the abilities and stuff like that. I had a little bit more of the, I don't know, I guess you should say the actual technical knowledge, if you will, and trying to look up stuff, computer stuff, and all that thing, different things and apps and stuff, trying to figure out how to do it. And eventually, maybe we can actually do something with this, taking the features that are in War of the Lions, which isn't available in the PSX version, but taking the features in the PSP version, since it had the local networking features, to try to do something more with this. And that's where the Tactics League Discord even started from, was that trying to connect with other players such as yourself, Mikey, and others that are on the server even to this day, trying to create a community of people who want to play Tactics multiplayer and experience it, because it is a totally different thing. I was surprised to see how it is when you're playing against another player instead of playing against the AI like we've always done all these years. So it's cool to be able to bridge the gap between the PPSS emulator, using the zero-tier networking service now, to bridge that gap, to be able to actually connect with other players regardless of where you are in the world, from the seams of it, and also from whatever device that PPSS and zero-tier are supported on, which is pretty much most modern day things. I mean, at least minimum a computer, Android, iOS, I think even Linux, few other things. It has a lot of versatility on both applications, which gives the ability to have a multitude of people be able to come in on whatever platform they have practically and be able to join in.
You mentioned how different it is to play PvP and the multiplayer experience in general. What specifically do you think is the biggest reward in PvP? When you're setting up your roster and you know that you're going to be battling somebody else, you may not know what they're taking, or you're playing a pre-made roster. What about that experience to you is the most fun?
Well, okay, so let's go on and take it to two different sides. I'll start with the starter format, which, for those that don't know, starter is the Tactics League's main competitive format, where you basically have a full roster of generics and unique characters, and you're able to customize and build to your heart's content based on certain limitations, but you can pretty much build whatever you want. That in itself, I find a lot of joy in, because it's fun to be able to theory craft and make wonky builds or niche builds and see how they perform against another player. The biggest thing about playing against another player is you don't know what to expect, right? you go and do a mission and story, you kind of know what to expect usually, especially if you've ran through the game a couple times or you're retrying a mission a couple times because you haven't cleared it yet. You kind of know what to expect at some point. But when you go against a player, it's a totally different beast. Like, a player can have a totally different team composition that can completely rival against your own. It can completely shut you out, but possibly they could be running like an anti-meta setup or meta setup, which then, like, depending on how you're set up, it may either go well or go really bad in your favor. Like, there's a lot of different things when playing against another player, which is so fun. But even for me, like, personally, I enjoy seeing people in the server connecting each other and reporting that, they're able to get their games and stuff like that, and just why, like, even coming in on videos if someone's streaming and one of the voice channels, just kind of come in and just kind of check the game out, just seeing people actively playing, and just kind of seeing the effort and time that I've put into getting a lot of the stuff built around so that people have access to it. Seeing it being manifested and used is always a positive for me. So, it does take just kind of throwing out there, it does take a couple of games, maybe even a few matches, which matches in Tactics League format is a best of 3. But it does take a little bit to kind of get used to it. It is a little different. Definitely check out the pre-made stuff first. That's definitely the place to go to use a roster that both players are using the same roster, but it's builds that are catered to certain damage and certain roles and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more of an equal playing field because everyone has the same save and same character in essence. And it allows you to kind of just, check out what kind of offerings we have and kind of just pick whatever and just be able to just jump into a game, right? Like, sometimes it just takes that effort to, I'm not sure if I want to get into this yet, but I'll try pre-made, like the generic pre-made, which is by far the most popular of the pre-made formats as of late. And I'll check a generic format out and, just kind of pick a couple characters, just kind of throw them on the field and see how it goes, right? Like, maybe you kind of get used to and acclimated to what is playing PvP tactics, because it is a different field. But there's a lot of fun to be had with it. There's a lot of cool, nifty stuff that I've seen people do, and even myself, and it's a blast.
What are the biggest challenges to getting this PvP community going to you that you've experienced?
Sure. So I'm going to touch on the main one is time. Time is definitely pivotal in how the community is able to get together and be able to do these PvP or co-op matches. Most of us at this point, we're adults, right? Or more than likely, say most of us are adults. So we have adult lives and responsibilities, families, etc. So it makes it a lot harder to get those times set up, right? Like, maybe I'm free at 9, but I only have like an hour window. And I gotta look at my time zone where I'm at, and then I gotta look at anyone when I put a request out. Now it's those who see the request. Now they have to look at their own time zone and figure out, can I even get on to match that? So I think that's like the biggest challenge that we've had in general is being able to sync up time so that matches can be created and to begin with. Besides that, I would say that accessibility is probably the second biggest one. And why I would say accessibility is because it does take a little bit to get set up. It's not as difficult as it may appear, but I can understand that it can be kind of daunting at looking at what you need to do. So, you need to back up you have to have a legitimate copy, and you need to back up the UMD version to your computer, which, might be a little hard to do, right? Especially if you're not too tech savvy. So you got to figure that stuff out. And once you've gotten that squared away, and then you have to get the emulator and zero tier if you plan on doing multiplayer stuff, of course. I do understand that it can be a little hard to get through some of that stuff. Once again, just touch base that not everyone's tech savvy, or not everyone has the time to be able to dedicate to download like 3 different things and then trying to get everything set up, if you will, following these text guides. And you also put out a video guide that was really helpful. I've actually gotten a message a couple times about that. So, the resources are there for people who want to get into it. But also, at the end of the day, my best advice is to go for it, right? Hop in and try it. You would never know if you can reinvigorate that passion for tactics and possibly light that candle for PvP if you don't try at the end of the day. So the resources are there to get people involved into the multiplayer side of tactics. It just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of reading, maybe a little bit of watching, a couple clicks here and there to download a couple things. Everything that has been provided has been, tested, field tested. So we know that these things work. It's mostly just, making sure that people have the ability to get the stuff they need and be able to have the time to manage, which is going to come down to the player in the end of the day. But I would say time and accessibility is probably the main ones.
One last question for you.
Sure.
And this is thinking possibly near future, possibly far future, but what do you envision a live esports Final Fantasy Tactics PvP tournament to look like?
Sure. So that's a really awesome question you asked. It'd probably be about 24 to 32 players, probably using an online tournament system to seed players, so that way people who had competed prior would have the ability to get place in certain ranks beforehand. Seeding pretty much would just apply for maybe host privileges, or not host privileges, because there aren't really host privileges anymore, but it'd probably be more along the lines of determining if they want to host or if they want to have the other player host, which would actually kind of apply to certain maps, because some maps the host and the guest player are in different positions, as well as the guest having priority with certain abilities or being able to act first and priority. So that might be where seeding would come in at. But besides that, of course, the main tournament would be using the starter format, because once again, starter is the main tournament, the main premier format for Tactics League. So it would be the Theorycraft team building mode that we've been talking about. Would be using the starter rule set that we already have set up in the Discord as well, and also using a tournament specific regulation that I actually already have built, but I've not shown yet. But I do have one actually set up for that, specifically for doing online and possible LAN. But also there would be at least at minimum two tournament officials regulating sanctioned matches. When it comes to official matches, we will provide the tools needed to have the player be able to play, as well as having streaming capabilities, because that's definitely important, is to be able to broadcast these matches. So in addition to having the game systems and the disc available for the player, we'd also have equipment set up to where we'd probably project both matches in two separate locations. So there'd be, feature match A and feature match B, and these are going to be the matches that are being statistically and sanctioned, while other players are maybe doing free play. And these are the matches that are really going to count, because that's the tournament matches, if you will. Besides that, a player will probably bring their own memory stick. So that's probably the main thing. Make sure you have your own memory stick, so that way you can already have your save customized. And then you can move your save over from your computer or your PSP or whatever, put on the memory stick, and then bring it to the event. And then that way you can load it in on the floor when it's your time to participate in your match. And as well as with the Tactics League official save data, because this would be a starter format, so you'd have to have that save already set up in advance. And lastly, if there's ability to get promotional content through Square Enix, that'd be amazing, because it is their game after all. So it'd be cool to get some shout outs or some promo stuff through them. But even if not that through them, other brands that want to support the cause, that's always a plus too. So my biggest thing, if we're going to ever do a real full LAN, of course, there's got to be a lot of reason to go out to it. Besides, obviously, for the feel of the game, it's also, what are you competing for? Is this just bragging rights? Partly, but it's also, there should be a reason, which, would be cash-based, of course. Probably for the top 4, if I had to guess. So, first place would obviously get, the most of the pie, and then would go all the way down to 4th. But that's kind of how I would envision running a local tournament.
So, Yoshnja, thank you again for taking the time to talk with me, talk about, Tactics League and the best place to find players on the internet that want to play Final Fantasy Tactics multiplayer with us and you. That is Tactics League Discord. So definitely check it out. So before I shut down and give my final spiel to all of the viewers, why don't you go ahead and give a shout out to viewers of your channel and anything else you'd like to say?
Sure. First and foremost, I just wanted to tell everyone that's a part of the Tactics League Discord and the community, thank you guys for coming in and participating, even those that aren't there necessarily to play, but those that are contributing to the discussions and stuff that we've been having regarding abilities and team building and all the sorts. I mean, that stuff matters, right? This is the whole point of what has been made with Tactics League, is that it is a community. So without the community, it wouldn't really work. But it is important to make sure that everyone knows that I am very proud of the stuff that we've done as a community in general. The just bringing in new people, having discussions about different things. Recently launching the website, the official website at tacticsleague.com. A lot of stuff is important to build towards success, and I want a huge shout out to the community. Huge shout out to my wife, because she's been there and talking to me about all sorts of different stuff, and huge shout out to Drace, which he hasn't been around doing PvP stuff lately, but I still talk with him regularly about making changes and updates to the official save and just different tactics stuff. So he's played a big role in that. He's been kind of behind the scenes, if you will, but he is still around and kicking. So big shout out to him as well. I would say your specialty and the story aspect, going over through the story content and like the story team stuff you've been doing lately, is important as well, because not everyone is interested in playing multiplayer stuff. A lot of people are interested in just playing story stuff, and that's 100% okay. In Tactics League, we welcome you with open arms as well. Even if you're just here to chit chat about different story stuff that isn't necessarily multiplayer driven, that's perfectly fine. At the end of the day, this is a Final Fantasy Tactics community, and it is all for the solo players, the multiplayers. It's for everybody, right? So it's just awesome to see that the work that we've been doing over the course of the past two and a half years now has gained a lot of momentum, and hope to continue to do so in the years to come.
Yeah, it really is about the community. I couldn't agree more. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap us up and close us out. Yoshnja, thank you once again for taking the time to have this creator chat. For everyone else, if you haven't checked out the Tactics League YouTube channel, it is linked in the description, where Yoshnja has been recording a bunch of matches. Definitely check out the highlights from them. There are some really interesting moments that that really make the PvP experience unique, so to say. So definitely subscribe to Tactics League. If you haven't subscribed to Tactics Live Tournament, please do that as well. And for everyone, I will see you in the next video. And until then, be well.